got to do with it?
From UFOs to ghosts and psychic powers, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now and learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. A placebo may look like real medicine, but it isn't. Placebos are made of inert substances like sugar and used in clinical drug trials to prove the efficacy of a real drug. In clinical trials, one group of patients receives an experimental medicine and a second group receives a placebo. In theory, this gives scientists an objective way to measure whether a medicine actually has an effect on a patient. These double-blind, placebo-controlled tests are used throughout the pharmaceutical industry, and a drug must beat a placebo in at least 2 trials to gain FDA approval. Seems simple, except that is, for the placebo effect. Some patients who take the fake medicine also experience improvement in their symptoms. Sometimes, placebos even outperform real treatments. While scientists don't fully understand what causes the placebo effect, we do know one thing: it may be increasing. Here's where it gets crazy. It's strange to think that a person's beliefs may generate measurable effects. It's even weirder to think that this effect may be increasing across the board. FDA drug testing requires 3 phases of trials, and by the second phase, these drugs are tested against placebos. Approximately half of all the drugs that fail in late-stage trials fail because they simply can't outperform placebos. So what exactly makes a placebo generate some of the same effects as real medicine? A number of factors can influence the effectiveness of a placebo, including a pill's color or the location of the testing facility. For example, when Valium is tested in France, it outperforms the placebo. But when it is tested in the United States, Valium tends to fail the placebo test. Placebo research has been conducted across the world, and the findings have challenged some of the industry's most basic assumptions. The data on antidepressant drugs can be particularly disturbing. Since the 1980s, 2 large-scale analyses of antidepressant trials have shown a significant increase in the placebo effect. According to drug makers, it's not that the old meds are getting weaker. It's more like the placebo effect itself is increasing. Physicians are intimately familiar with placebos. In a survey by the National Institutes of Health, half of the physicians surveyed admitted that they've treated patients with placebos. The implications of the placebo effect are wide-reaching. Most immediately, it highlights how much we still have to learn about the relationship between a patient's mind and body. And there's still the possibility that an unknown variable could generate this perceived rise in effectiveness. There's also no question that the placebo effect could spell trouble for drug makers.
Yep.
This apparent growth in the placebo effect could undermine the FDA's testing procedures, and it could also mean that some drugs currently on the market, if retested in different locations, might fail to outperform fake medicine. Some researchers are attempting to compile data from drug companies to measure the placebo effect. Yet these companies are highly secretive about drug testing data.
Yep.
Whether this is simply due to good business practices or a fear of what the studies may find, it's clear there's something the drug companies don't want you to know.
Yep. Did you know that if you give somebody a white placebo and you observe some placebo effect, but if you give them a smaller pill, turn it blue and stamp a number on it, it gives a way higher placebo effect.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of weirdness on that. It'd be kind of a cool science fair project if they would let you do one which is more psychological. So it's pretty cool. All right, let me turn this off and
No.
go on. All right, if this doesn't fall off the board, I can do it gentle. All right.
You're a good
Gentle.
ginger.
That's what I have to tell Eli.
All right, so let's go back to our experiments.
Do you know
I
that
missed that. I'm glad.
Two references?
The best design then for experiment with medication is to have a group
Oh,
with
so it's
the
like that.
pill and a group that looks like they're having the pill, so they don't know if it's a placebo or the actual treatment.
Is he
Should the
from Virginia or
doctors say at the end of the experiment, and when we get to the point where we do what? What's the word at the end?
Conclude or compare.
Compare, it's still up there. When we get to the end of the test and the doctor comes in to examine the patient to see if there's been significant improvement, already the patient doesn't know if they've had the placebo or not. Should the doctor know if the patient has had the placebo or not? I see yes and I see no. Should the doctor who is doing the final exam know whether the patient has had the placebo or not? The answer is no, because they might interact with the person in a more positive or negative way. Like, if you know
They
that the
should know
person had a
afterwards.
sugar, say I'm taking a pill to give my knees more flexibility.
No one should ever know.
So, say if the doctor
People will get
knows
better
that
now.
I had been taking the sugar pill instead of the
That's the
whatever
problem
they
with this.
give people
Everybody's
for
gonna know about
flexible
it.
knees, he might say, well, there's not going to be
Everybody
any
knows
change in that person's knee flexibility, so forget, I'm not even going to test it thoroughly. So
But
he's
if
going to
he's the
have.
one that's setting up
This is
the
a
whole
big problem.
experiment.
Yeah,
all
he
the
needs
all the
to know, or else
medicine companies are gonna
he can't
crash,
make a
and
conclusion.
everybody's just gonna use
He needs
placebos.
to
But
know.
then
Yes.
the effect won't matter anymore because everybody knows they're placebos.
So,
People aren't placebo.
what that is called, and if you would take a note of that,
People aren't placebos.
when the person administering, how do we say that? Let us come up with a way of saying that.
The
Double blind.
we know what double blind is.
Oh yeah, it's when the person giving the thing doesn't know and the person that's doing the experiment doesn't know.
What?
Right, alright. So, the person receiving the treatment and the person receiving and giving the treatment do not know which is the real and which is the placebo. The person receiving and giving the treatment.
And then you can't really have a good conclusion.
Is unaware.
Does somebody know?
Yeah, somebody
Okay.
knows. Somebody out there knows. Someone has records. Is unaware who has the actual treatment.
Can we try this out by you giving us medicine to do something and then
I
some
was
of us
trying
give
to
it
think of that. I was really trying to. What they suggest in one book, but
cough drop?
I don't even want to do that. Is like you take your heart rate and then I give you like a cola drink, and some of them has caffeine in and some doesn't.
Oh.
Yeah,
That
But-
would be good.
I don't know.
There's still probably a sugar in it. They probably
Yeah, I
still.
just didn't want to poison you with sugar and caffeine
You should
even.
invent your own cola drink that has no sugar and no caffeine but still tastes like
Yeah, it's hard
If
to
you can invent
find
something
one.
that tastes like sugar, it's not sugar then.
Yeah,
very dry.
it's gonna be hard to do.
I have a cut of
So what could I give you a pill for that would work? Who knows? All right. Can every experiment be double blind? I'm telling you that I want it to be double blind, but can every experiment be double blind? What about yesterday, the guys with the prostate problems? They either had non-surgical or surgical treatments. Do you want your surgeon to be double blind?
no.
You can't. Well, you can't really placebo surgery. We talked. That's what we talked about that yesterday. You can't really
Right,
placebo
so
surgery.
not every case is it possible to have a double blind or even one person unaware that they're having a placebo. You know whether you had surgery or not.
Wow, what they could do is give them.
Put them under.
You put them under first.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
make
but
I read about
no,
that.
based
Yeah.
on their scarring.
Guess what? This is shocking.
Yeah, also surgery.
Oh my gosh! The whole time they're asleep, they're just putting makeup on them. So.
If you're intending to be a surgeon, don't listen to this. So, but they actually have done experiments on people where they have cut them and not performed the surgery and returned, and sewed them back up and treated them as if they had the surgery. Guess what? They improved.
But so they actually cut into them and then just sewed them back up. So that's yeah. So you
I
can't
didn't see
placebo
it in my
surgery.
book, but I saw it online, so
That
you
would
have
be
to believe
terrible.
that.
You get the
Well,
scar and
depends on
everything, and you don't even.
It's better than having to actually
You have to pay
be
for the surgery and even get the surgery.
Yeah, I don't know about the details.
That'd be
If it
worse.
works, then it doesn't matter.
All
You
right.
had to pay for it when you couldn't have.
Let's look in the back of our
Doesn't-
handout today where there's a check your understanding. Sue,
That's the
Elena,
only
would
reason to
you
do it is so
find
that it works.
I won't charge you for me to cut you open and then sew you back up.
Elena, would you read
So,
the
I can-
check
If
your
you
don't charge them,
understanding
they'll know.
for us? It's on the back
I would do it for you.
about music.
Ooh,
I will even actually perform the surgery if you
wait,
want
no, it's not.
It's
to.
not.
You don't have to pay
It's
me.
about pregnant women.
And I'll cut your hair.
I must be on the wrong day.
Together with Dr.
I'm
Barber.
way behind you.
think I should
Okay,
some more
The one
again.
yesterday was about
Yeah, yeah, it was.
students.
Okay,
You would trust me to do your
ultrasound,
surgery
you're
more
right.
than me?
That's
Alright.
not good, no.
Quiet,
I do not study
Elena.
names.
Look at
Go
this
ahead.
again. Look at
Okay. In an interesting experiment, researchers examined the effect of ultrasound birth weight. Pregnant women participating in the study were randomly assigned to one of the two groups. The first group of women received an ultrasound, the second group did not. When the subjects' babies were born, their birth weights were recorded. The women who received the ultrasounds had heavier babies.
Did the experiment design take the placebo effect into account?
You can't have a placebo effect because you can't affect the baby yourself.
Well,
be
they're
like-
talking about the pregnancy. So the mother and the baby.
They was in the birth
Was
weight.
there a placebo effect accounted for in this experiment?
It was the birth weight of the child. The child cannot be in the placebo effect. The child probably doesn't know that it had an ultrasound or not, and it isn't going to be like,
Well,
Oh,
there's
if I have
some
an ultrasound,
connection.
then
There's
I'm
some
gonna be-
connection
Maybe-
about that woman carrying that child.
Maybe the woman carrying the child, when she saw the ultrasound, got like more nervous about whether or not the child would be okay because she actually saw it and then she was like, okay, can you do anything to have an
So the
early
baby
labor?
was more real to her. You're saying?
Yeah, so
Right.
she like made
Time
her
to
lifestyle
stop?
choices differently.
Okay, shut it
And
down.
she didn't want the baby